Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hugnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week. So keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Listen to the show anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, and you can watch us on the ThunderCast YouTube channel. We're anywhere and everywhere, man. We make it really easy for you to watch the show. I'd like you to do me a favor, though. We haven't asked you this in a long time, so if you're listening, watching, enjoying the ThunderCast, share the links to the show with your friends, man. Help us grow the fan base, the listener base, so we can reach more of you. The more of you that we reach, the more content we can bring. And ultimately, the more tickets we can give away, awesome tailgates we can put on, and things like that. We're going to try to get through this great episode of a recap of it was a nice game to watch, most of it anyway. I know there was a big delay in there and all that kind of stuff. But I've been looking forward to talking about this recap of the Middle Tennessee game. But we're going to try to get through it. Russ is without internet, so I'm going to try to take the heavy lifting, as Russ likes to say in this episode, because we don't know if he'll be able to maintain a good quality picture or audio. He's struggling there in Huntington with the internet connection. We're trying to get it done on a hotspot. Looks good now, but hopefully it'll make it through the duration. But I don't know. I don't think there's anything to do, man. I want to talk about this football game. How about you?
Yeah, just from a bird's eye view, the most insane first quarter that I can think of in definitely recent memory. But I had instant flashbacks after the rain delay of the 2014 Marshall versus WKU home run after home run after home run. So We'll talk about that. But that's just my first bird's eye.
Yeah, it was haymaker after haymaker there for a hot minute after the delay ended. And I got some things I want to talk about too with that, but can't get into any of it until we pay a couple bills. So let's get us a word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
Well, it all added up at the end. Let's get to that point. That's the important part. It's 42-28. The Herd gets the win at Johnny Red Floyd Stadium in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is enough to celebrate in and of itself. The Herd now moves to 2-2 on the season. It's a brand new football season for the Herd. We are even. So that means there are, 8 games left to go. All of them are the conference slate. All of these matter now, every single one. The Herd is getting hot at the right time. Man, I got to say this, man. I was thinking about it, how let down I was after that game against Missouri State. And you look back at it, and you're a missed field goal away from being 3-1, exactly where we thought we would be. It's 1 point and a missed field goal away. And it doesn't really matter that it was ugly in that game, and they never really should have been in a position to lose. But ultimately, that's what it is. 1 chip shot field goal and 1 point away from being 3-1 where we thought we would be. But now Marshall has defeated Middle Tennessee State in Tennessee, which is, like I said, a big feat. Marshall now owns a 7-5 all-time series lead, and now 2-4 in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. But Tony Gibson 1-0, and that's all that really matters right now. You mentioned that 2+ hour rain delay. I did not see that one coming. Just had settled in to watch the game. Got a little bit of action, and then lightning struck right after the Herd brought the thunder on that opening touchdown. So you were there. I know you made the trip and things changed last minute, but let's talk about it a little bit if you can. And right on cue, we have a rain delay for Russ as well. He's lost his connection. So we're going to try to power through that one. I'll get his reaction here in a minute. Whoa, what happened? I'll try to get his reaction here in a minute to the trip, but in the meantime, I'll go ahead and talk about those indicators. And as this one, you might expect, all the indicators point to the score of this game, which was, like I said, 42-28. And this was a dominating performance by Marshall in the beginning of the game and the end of the game. Total yards, time of possession, first downs, third downs, penalties, and turnovers. in this one. Let me get through the indicators, Russ. We'll get that reaction from you for the trip. 452 yards for the herd, 373 for Middle Tennessee. Time of possession, big time for the herd, 36-47 to 23-13 for Middle. First downs, another big disparity, 27 first downs for the herd, just 14 for Middle. Third down conversions, 7 of 12 for Marshall, just 3 of 10 for Middle Tennessee. 58% on the day for the herd, just 30% for Middle Tennessee. Penalties was god-awful stat in this whole game. 20 total penalties, 8 for 62 for Marshall, 12 for 111 yards for Middle Tennessee State. Turnovers were a push, 1-1. You add it all up, like I said, it ends up being 42-28 in favor of the herd. But back to you and this and making the trip and that whole thing. So give me the experience from heading to Murfreesboro.
Right before you hit record, you said, I hope somebody doesn't call you. That's what happened just now. And it kicked me out. But so I made the trip and I had to go solo. And, it's always better to go with a road trip buddy. And my wife is my road trip buddy of preference. And she didn't get to go with some family things. So I went by myself. I got down there pretty early, parked where I could pull right out at the lot. Turns out I didn't need to do that because everybody was gone by the time I left anyway. But you know me, man. I just walked around and wanted to see some tailgating, and I was loving what they had going on. The bad part was, as I tweeted out, there must have been 20 to 25,000 tailgaters out there. There must have been 2,500 people that actually went into the game. Maybe it was more than that, but by the time the rain delays were over, yeah, it was that. It was just one of those things. Everybody turned around, looked at each other and said, Murfreesboro, man. When you get the rain delays, just something weird to happen. And then you come out of the rain delay and it's like we just said, home run after home run after home run, trading home run plays back and forth. It was weird. It was wild. It was good to get a victory down there, and it was good to go 2-2 heading into conference play. Like we said in the preview, much different than going 1-3 heading into conference play.
Oh gosh, yeah. You go 1-3, you're really staring down the barrel of a rough season, it would feel like. But I got to talk to you about this rain delay. I had just settled in, watched the game. I watched the herd get that initial touchdown, points off the turnovers, which felt great. And then the lightning came. And I sat there for the first half hour and waited for an update. And then I sat there for the second half hour and the third half hour. And I thought, you know what, man, I'm getting hungry. Let me go get some food before everything starts to close down. I ran down the road. Chipotle's really close to my house. But by the time I left the house, went and picked up my food and got back, I'd missed 2 freaking touchdowns. I'm like, what the hell is going on here, man? I sat on my couch playing games on my phone for an hour and a half. I left for 15 minutes and missed 2 touchdowns, and then I sat down and seemingly the first play that I saw was that big Middle Tennessee touchdown where Boogie tried to jump the route. Yeah. And I had just sat down and I was like, really, man? This is what the hell is going on? So my personal timing on the viewing experience was like fueling my Murfreesboro fire, man. It just felt like the football gods were against me in this game, but ultimately it worked out.
Here was mine there. We score, and then immediately up on the board is, fans, there's severe weather delay, retreat to the concourse, that sort of thing. So I go down there, and I was like, 15 minutes. And then 15 turned into 30. And then 30 turned into 45. I just happened to have an extra ticket, so I went back out, man. I went back out. I had a Buc-ee's big brisket sandwich, and I was like, I'm gonna go out and get the big buck and brisket, and I just went, got it out of the hot box and ate it out there in the vehicle. Charged my phone a little bit, walk back in, go in, because as I'm walking back in, I see fans are in the stands. And I'm like, oh yeah, good timing. So I go back there. The team is lined up, getting ready to run out of the tunnel. And then here comes a guy from Middle Tennessee comes over and is like, hold on, guys. And then the announcement comes, is like, lightning has been seen 3 miles away from the stadium. Everybody back out. And the team is deflated. We go back under there for what felt like another 45 minutes or so. It's got to be hard on both teams to do that, turn it off, then turn it back on. But I want to tell you, you've seen a lot of stuff about the bands playing back and forth, and that was cool. Let me tell you what I thought was cooler. Our team, several people, but a lot of them on our team were out there, and there's just a little gate in between. They were out there like signing hats and stuff for the little kids, throwing ball with the kids and stuff like that, talking to them, made those kids' day. You know, they
Yeah.
traveled all the way down there, and then they're in a big rain delay, and they're out there. Hats off to every single player on that team that went out there and interacted with those kids, man. That was just awesome.
See, that's really cool, and that's not something that they were showing on the broadcast. That on ESPN Plus, they just said your event is in a delay. There was no live feed to the stadium or anything like that. It was just a blank, like screensaver looking thing saying you're on a delay, which sucks because that would have been cool to see that kind of stuff, and would have been something for us to talk about. Which, I mean, I'm glad you can, because I would have had no idea that was happening. That's really, really cool, man. Let's talk about what the guys did. Holy moly, this was a really great game for Carlos Del Rio-Wilson. I know we're going to have some great conversation about these guys, particularly that we're going to rip off on offense in the grades. But let me get through this. Let me get through a little couple of bullet points, and then I really, really do want to get the grades this week, because I think there's some interesting things that we need to discover or rediscover. So Carlos Del Rio-Wilson gets to start again, second game in a row, 18 of 22, a massively efficient game, 261 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns through the air, no interceptions, 13 carries for 22 yards and a rushing touchdown on the ground. He was sacked 2 times. That all leads up and totals to the Sun Belt Conference Offensive Player of the Week honors, also some national honors in there as well. Michael Allen's your leading rusher from a running back standpoint, 21 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He has 1 reception for 7 yards. That was good, though, for 4.3 yards per carry. Not too bad for Mike Allen. The last run of the game for him, I think, was his best run of the game, the touchdown run, which is something that I like, that you're getting better as the game goes along. That's a trait that we've seen from so many great herd running backs throughout the years. It's nice to know that we have at least one in the stable that can do that now. Mike Allen's gotten a lot of carries in the past couple of games, so something to be aware of. Of course, we heard on the broadcast, or I did anyway, that Joe Shombarby did not travel with the team. He's dinged up and injured right now. They didn't get into what it was, but just know that he did not make the trip. Antoine Roberts got in there, just 3 carries, 37 yards, but 12.7 yards per carry. 44 was running hard, man, and it looked like it. He was motivated just from outside of Nashville. They mentioned on the broadcast he had 50 family members or something like that to come watch the game, so good for him to put on a little bit. Floyd Lacey, I believe, was the story offensively outside of CDRW. 5 receptions, his first game on offense. You called that. 5 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown. Let's see, 23.2 yards per reception on that with a long of 68. Just 2 rushing attempts, but also went for 42 yards, 21 yards per carry for Floyd and the long of 32. Then Toby Payne came in a big way. 4 receptions for 46 yards, 11.5 yards per reception. 2 touchdowns for a long of 20. It's almost like it's a really good idea to target 81 in the red zone. I don't know. These bullet points on this herd offense, they had 8 ball carriers once again carried the ball for the herd, 4.1 yards per carry collectively. 6 different receivers caught a pass from Carlos Del Rio-Wilson, total 14.5 yards per reception on average for all those guys, and a season high 42 points. Let's flip to the defense now. Boogie Trotter, JaVale Gilmore both lead the herd in tackles with 5 apiece. Trotter's, all 5 of his are solo tackles. Gilmore's 3 solos, 1 tackle for loss, and a pass defended. Then your last 2 guys that we're going to feature, both in the defensive backfield, Cam Smith and Daquan Smith, 4 tackles apiece, 3 solos apiece. Cam gets a tackle for loss and a sack along with a pass defended, and Daquan gets his first career interception, I believe. I know he had an interception. I think it was his first career interception. Impact plays for the herd, though, weren't as stout as we thought they would be going into this game. Just 3 sacks as a team. The aforementioned Cam Smith, Daryl Sweeting got 1, and Jamal Weiss. Just the one interception by Daquan, 4 total tackles for loss, and 5 passes defended. So not an overly gaudy stat line in the impact plays category. The only bullet point that I really have for this Herd team defensively, because let's face it, they struggled for a lot of this game until late in the game when they kind of turned it on. Just 74 rush yards allowed in this one to Middle Tennessee. I tweeted this out, and I think I was right. When we talked about the preview, you said that they were averaging 68. Wasn't that what it was going into the game? 68 yards per game?
Seems like it, yeah.
I could not remember if it was 68 or 86, but it felt like it was 68.
I could look it up because I've got it on my phone, but I don't want to mess up what we're trying to do here. But I've got every stat you would ever imagine that I recorded on the phone there.
No,
but I do want to say something about your impact plays, and here's why.
Okay.
You may have seen at halftime when I was at the stadium, I tweeted out we had 18 tackles
Yes.
at halftime. Well, Steve Cotton kind of put that in perspective because we ended up with only, I don't know, you'll have the team total tackles there. It's like in the 30s or something. They only ran 45 plays. So it's kind of hard to amass 60 tackles if they've got 45 plays or whatever. So it's also hard in 45 plays to have that many different impact plays of sacks and things like that. This game would have been a lot different if they would have had more than that. So it seems like they're low, but when you look at the percentage of impact plays per play that they ran, we actually turned it on pretty good there in the definitely the fourth quarter. But the defense got a little bit better as the game went on. Just trying to give a little context because they are lower, but we're used to going up against 70 to 75 plays. And this one was not half of that, but a good, 40% lower, maybe.
Yeah, and that was the halftime stat, right? You said just 18 tackles in the first half.
18.
Well,
Yeah.
let's make it even more staggering. Only 14 tackles in the second half. They had 32 total team tackles. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everything's going to be low because they just didn't run that many plays. Their scoring drives were like 1 play, 2 plays, things like that, and then we kind of dominated the time of possession after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I just wanted to, but back to my rushing stat. I think we had said they had 68 coming in. We allowed 74 rush yards total as a team to Middle Tennessee State. They got 72 yards on 1 play. So think about that. The remainder of the game, you allow 2 total yards, counting the sacks that you get or whatever, but still only 2 gross rush yards as a team. Now, the leading rusher, I believe, had 89 yards or something like that, but still, that's a crazy ass stat.
Yeah, especially too on that 72-yarder, they had him behind the line of scrimmage or at least right at the line of scrimmage. It was just a missed tackle.
Yeah, and remember, I said that going into this game in the preview, I said, yeah, they might be only averaging 68 yards, but anybody can bust one and throw that game average off. And that's what happened, and that happened early. So you were thinking, okay, this is going to be an egregious rush total. And those guys bounced back and clamped down on the run and really didn't have too much damage. They did most of their damage as we expected through the air. Special teamers for the Herd, Nathan Totten, once again, massively impactful. Just 4 punts on the day, but 202 total yards for an average of 50.5 yards with a long of 58. One, though, was just inches away from getting inside the 20 category. It landed on it got downed on the 20-yard line and 20 and 1 inch yard line. It was, but that had to have been the 58-yarder because they were deep in territory and he knocked the dog crap out of that ball.
He also had the one that, it's slight delay. He also had the one that got downed on like the 1 or something, but they had that penalty. So, I mean, it was just a great day for him as a punter. Even though that one doesn't count in the stats, it was going to look even more so because, average, and probably would have brought his average down slightly, but you put one on the 1 when you really need it and your defense is playing out of their minds at the end of the game, that was going to look really great too.
Yeah, it actually, yeah, he had another great day. He has just been such a weapon this whole year. Good for him, man. Lorcan Quinn did not get an opportunity at a field goal in this one, but he went 6 for 6 on extra points. No real hay made in the return game. No big plays really given up in kick coverage or punt coverage for the Herd. So kind of a wash. Let's revisit our keys to victory. Do you recall your number one?
I do. I've got them up on the laptop. I emailed them over knowing I was going to have to do this. Number one, establish a passing game. Big check right there. 18 out of 22, 4 touchdowns through the air. But the big thing was we came out passing early on the first couple of series. And that's where we started to do our damage. It's like they expected us to come through and run and not pass, and we came out intentionally trying to do that. And I think it worked out great. Huge check mark there.
Yeah, huge check mark. Now, look, my number one key to victory was you have to harass Videotto. And even though it doesn't show up in the sacks category, they did that. They harassed him quite a bit. He was off of his spot. I think if you want to get an accurate depiction of how well he was harassed, he was only 19 of 32. So they were forcing him to make passes, make completions on the run or get off your spot. He wasn't really able to just stand back there and pick you apart. He had a few plays where he was able to do that, and he made some big plays. And the defensive backfield helped him out quite a bit on some plays by not tackling well, But they did a good job of harassing him. They kept him moving and kept him under duress. I wish that they listed a category for quarterback pressures on the defensive or on the stats, so you could monitor those as impact plays. But I'm going to give them a check for that, even though the sacks didn't show up as big as we thought. You alluded to it. You only have 32 total tackles on the day. I mean, 10% of those or 9% of those were sacks, so that's not too bad. What was your number two?
Execute on third down. We went in 26.1%. We were 58.3, I think, on this, 7 out of 12. And here's the deal. Not just the numbers and the percentage. I went back and looked what we did. Our first 4 third downs that was not the punt were touchdowns. We scored 4 of our touchdowns on third down. And I just stopped from there because all the stuff trying to get this situated so we could record, I didn't get to dive in as much as I wanted, but at least 4 of our touchdowns came on that third down. So it wasn't just that we executed in a conversion, we were immediately scoring points on that thing. Not that we extended it so we could get it on first or second down. On third down, we scored the touchdown.
Yeah, and you know what? I look at that and I think that's more demoralizing to a defense because that's the moment they have you. They're either going to get you off the field or they're going to force you into a field goal attempt. And you put points on the board, you put touchdowns on the board, and you're like, damn it, man, we had them. And to have it once is like, all right. It happens a second time, you're like, God. Third and fourth time, you're like, geez. It was just turned out to be the Herd's day on third down. They did a phenomenal job. My number two key to victory was to punish the Middle Tennessee State offensive line. And I thought we were going to do that through a swarming pass rush. And I didn't see it as much as I thought I was going to see it, but we still were able to keep, like it's number one key to victory, Videotto was harassed all day. So I won't say that you punish the Middle Tennessee offensive line, but they weren't able to open very many holes in the run game. They weren't able to keep their quarterback in a clean pocket. So while they didn't punish them, I think they did have a good day against that Middle Tennessee State offensive line. I'll give them a half for that. How about your number three?
Number 3 makes it 3 for 3 for me so far. We seem to have big play potentials, what I said, but we needed to explode. I felt like we did that. Lacey did that. He had a 32-yard run. He had that 68-yard reception for a touchdown. And we just seemed to open up the holes in the fourth quarter and get those big run plays. So, yeah, I give him a check mark for that, too. We came in averaging 286 total yards. And I know we were over 400. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, 452 actually on the day. I mean, Rio-Wilson almost accounted for the game average through the air alone,
Yeah.
My number 3 was to run to set up everything else. They didn't need to do that they had success in the pass game right out of the gate. So they didn't need to set anything up. They didn't need to force that extra man in the box to get some separation for those wide receivers. It worked right out of the get-go. So I can't say that they did that, but they didn't need to do that. So I can't really ding them for it, but I can't say they did it either. It was kind of a push. You just didn't need to do it. What was your last one?
Execute in the red zone, and I felt like we did that. Yeah, we got in there. This may have been two that we were in there 4 times. I know we were in there 3 times. We got 3 touchdowns. We never had to settle for a field goal, but I think every single time we went to the red zone, we scored a touchdown.
Yeah, it was a great red zone day. I mean, I can think of 2 touchdowns to Payne and then the run by Allen for sure. I would imagine
Rio-Wilson also had a 7-yard touchdown run. So I think it was 4 for 4 there. And Lacey's got the 5th one with his long one. I can't remember what the other. I think we at least went 4 for 4 with 4 touchdowns while we were there, but it could have been 5 for 5.
Yeah, really great day in the red zone. My number 4, if you'll remember, it was finish plays, finish drives, finish the game. At a certain point in the game, we were not finishing plays, and it allowed Middle Tennessee State to get points, and it was starting to get a little bit of worrisome there. You know, we finished drives early in the game. We finished drives late in the game. There in the middle portion of the game, we were not finishing plays. We were giving up way too easy, giving up yardage way too easy on defense. But the big one and the one that really matters is they finished the game in convincing fashion. So I'm going to give them a check for that, but it was concerning that some of those plays that they did not finish led to points for the opposition. That's something that can't happen moving forward. Let's talk about some grades, man, because this is going to be a fun one. What do you got for the quarterbacks? Of course, this is mainly Del Rio-Wilson. Ja'Kai Long got in for a couple of plays as Del Rio-Wilson again kind of limped off, and he was back a few plays later. But poor Ja'Kai, he got in and immediately took a beating. Couple big hits. He was only in for 3 plays maybe, but a couple of really big hits. But what do you got for the quarterbacks, mainly Del Rio-Wilson?
A+. You know, that was just efficiency. We limited the quarterback runs, but when we did, we still got a touchdown on the ground out of that. And even though it wasn't a huge yardage day on the QB runs, we got a touchdown. 5 total touchdowns, no turnovers. So the turnover officially goes to Turner Bradshaw, but the pitch was a little high by Del Rio.
Not the greatest, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I say no turnovers because ESPN and the stats didn't give that turnover to him. It officially goes down as a fumble by the wide receiver on the reverse. That is the only ding for him. But he, I mean, just absolutely threaded the needle on that one to Tamarez. And, I mean, you know, the check down going over to, it wasn't really a check down design play, but the short pass to Payne over there was just a beauty. You know, he did really well. Everything that you need to do efficiency wise, 5 touchdowns on the game. A+ for the quarterback here.
5 touchdowns accounted for with no turnovers lost wins you a lot of football games. Now, he is credited with a fumble, but it was recovered by the Herd. So Del Rio-Wilson and Long both are credited with a fumble. The Herd didn't lose either of them. Now, if you're getting nitpicky, early in the game, there was a pass to Payne, and it looked like a rinse and repeat of the week before, and I had shades of you in my head saying, if he hits Payne in stride, that's a touchdown. And I saw the same thing again. It'll get there. And I don't really care that it happened. It still was a completion. It still moved the ball. Ultimately, we ended up in the end zone plenty of times. This was a really, really great breakout game for Carlos Del Rio-Wilson to build on what he did the week before. If anybody else has any questions of who quarterback 1 is, put them to bed, because this is the guy who's quarterback 1. We had been waiting for 2 weeks, 3 weeks really, for somebody to grab a hold of that and say, this position is mine. I thought he grabbed it by the neck last week, but this week he choked the air out of it. This is his team. It's his position right now. And until he gets injured or something like that, it's his. He's playing at a really high level right now and only getting better week over week. Definite A+. Offense, what do you got for the guys?
I got an A-, and the 21 points in the first quarter, 21 points in the fourth quarter does a lot of heavy lifting, but so does the 452 yards. I didn't remember the exact total till you said it because I don't have my notes with me. But 5 touchdowns, not having to settle that, hey, we got in the red zone and we missed, we got to get a field goal, anything like that. We did stall in the middle of the game in the second and the third quarter. But that is really the only big thing here besides that fumble on the attempted reverse. Everything else, 42 points, 452 yards, no interceptions. You got the one fumble that happened. Yes, that was unfortunate. Yes, that changed the game that we could have went down. We were driving. It seemed like we were just taking it right to them. But I can't ding them down to a B+ when you're putting up 42 points, finish the game the way you did, have the big plays that you did, Lacey's acrobatic reception to keep that drive going and everything down the sideline. Everything about it screamed A. I got to go A- at the worst.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's an A- performance, and I would love to be able to give them an A+ because 42 points is going to win a buttload of ball games. Starting strong with a 21-point first quarter is going to win a lot of ball games, and a 21-point fourth quarter is going to demoralize teams to where you're probably going to win a lot of games too. Here's where my problem is that I can't give them anything higher. It does go back to that trick play because you were rolling again. There is no need to do something like that at all. And Marshall was struggling a bit in the second quarter. That turnover happened later in the second quarter when we finally had a good drive going. We had punted once or maybe just once because Totten only punted 4 times. But they had gotten stale there just for a second. Then they got it going again, and you decide to run the trick play. They didn't recover until the fourth quarter. The offense got stale. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't get anything going. And it took till the fourth quarter, maybe late in the third quarter. But the other thing that goes along with that is Floyd Lacey was out of the freaking game for a while. And unless he was hurt, I have no idea why he would have been out of the game. He was the most electric player on the offensive side of the football for the Herd. He was doing it on the ground. He was doing it through the air. He deserved to be in that game unless he just couldn't go, right? And as soon as they put him back in the game, he was an instant impact yet again, making plays, and the Herd defense or offense started cranking up again, and you started seeing touchdowns get put on the board. He's an electric player that people had to account for once again. I want to give a shout out to Turner Bradshaw, though, even though he had the fumble, which was unfortunate, and like we said, the pitch wasn't the best, but still, you gotta make that happen. He was inches away from this one-handed, like backhanded type catch that if he comes down with that, that would have been probably an SC top 10 type reception. Right up there with Floyd Lacey's double toe tap to stay in bounds, which was awesome. So he's like inches away from these big eye-popping plays as well. I like a lot of what this youngster is about. It's just he had two unfortunate plays. He couldn't come down with that one, and then the fumble was pretty bad. But let me talk about the production real fast. I don't know if folks are paying attention to this. Over the 4 games for the Herd this year, Marshall's gotten better on offense every game. 207 yards against Georgia, 274 yards against Missouri State, 377 yards against Eastern Kentucky, and now 452 yards against Middle Tennessee State. Dude, you're talking about from week 1 to week 4, more than double your production. So the Herd offense is trending. Now, if they'll just get out of the way of that trick play, maybe you'll be looking at a 550 plus offense.
You can say the same thing about the points on the board, too. Every game, it's followed the yards, so it just shows you it's not just, hey, we're picking up chunk plays, but we're stalling and can't score. They are actually getting better and more efficient every game as well. You started out with 7 against Georgia, 20 against Missouri State, 38 against EKU, and now 42 on the road against MTSU. They have gotten better exponentially in every game.
Yep. It's been pretty nice, man. And for all the stuff that we gripe about as fans, because we want every play to be perfect and every play
Sure.
to go for a touchdown, when you sit back and look at it, they are trending in the right direction. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you've now settled on a quarterback. Some of your playmakers are settling into their roles and becoming more vital parts of the offense. And now the coming out of nowhere party on offense of Floyd Lacey just adds to the lethality of this offense. Next week's going to be a big test, right? Because even though Louisiana is struggling now, 1-3 on the season, you still got to go down to Lafayette. You still got to go into their house again, and play them tooth and nail, because you know they're salty about what you did to them last year in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game at their house. So they're going to want to get not only on the right side of things and get one in the left-hand column, they want to get it at your expense particularly. So be interesting to see if this offense travels. It certainly traveled to Murfreesboro. Let's see if it travels to Lafayette. How about defense? What do you got for the guys on defense?
Toughest score for me to give somebody, and I give them a C+, and here's why. You could look at this, and definitely if you're watching, if you were there in person, you could just say, man, defense just doesn't have it today. They're giving up all these big plays and everything. They absolutely shut that team down after those big plays. And yeah, big plays still happen. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm not excusing that. That's why they're not getting an A or anything. But you said it earlier, 74 total rushing yards when they picked up 71, 72 on one play. You go look at the drive charts and you look at their yards that the defense gave up, and we started getting those sacks, getting those tackles for loss, shutting them down, making them punt, putting the game away. It was just early coming out of that uh, huge rain delay. The very first play was when, I think, it was first or second play, they score. And then the next drive that they get the ball, it was like 2 plays and they score. And then, you've got all this different stuff going on. We could have packed it in. We could have said, hey, we're not tackling well today. They didn't. They did not tackle well. They took some bad angles on some things. They took some gambles on some things. They didn't finish the tackles and let them get these chunk plays. But for me, it's a C+ because when you look, we gave up 8 points in the second half. Am I correct on that? Was it 21-20 and then they...
No, they gave, let's see. Yeah. Right? Yeah, I see a touchdown here in the late third quarter, and that's
with the
it.
2-point conversion. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. They got 8 points there in the second half alone. Vadiato was sitting back there. I know you said that, he had to move out of the pocket, and he did, but he was throwing to this one receiver and just carving us up, and we stopped that. We got better in all phases of the game. We got pressure on the quarterback. Our linebackers were swarming around everywhere. Vadiato got hit, and he's going to tell his grandkids about that one.
Jaden Johnson on the fourth down erased the man from the screen. I felt bad for him because of how much how obliterated he was from the TV screen.
So yes, we played bad there for a while, but when you start looking at everything that we did on defense, we did a lot of really good stuff. And those numbers, if they would have had more plays, would look a little bit better on your tackles. Don't look that hot because they only ran 42, 45 plays, whatever it was. It is hard to get 8 sacks, 6 sacks, 5 sacks when you've only got 32 tackles.
Of course,
Yeah. So I think that we did well. I'm giving them a C+ because really before they turned it on, it was looking like an F+. It was looking bad because our offense was doing their jobs, and then we were just turning around and putting the offense back on the field after 2 plays because they went down and scored on 2 plays. But we turned it around. We did great. The defensive front just took over for a while. Paul Hudson, the third, Katron Evans, Braden Ward before he got hurt. Someone else there got hurt, and I can't remember who it was. But I know Cannon Lewis got hurt a couple of times there but I was thinking somebody on the defensive line. But they just started getting back there seemingly every play.
Mhm.
And they were coming, even when it wasn't a sack. You mentioned the pressures earlier, innumerous times that they got back there to that. And they were getting back there, and that's what was calling, even when they didn't get to them and they got to dump it off. The play came back because they had to hold that guy to prevent it from being a sack. And that's when the tide turned. We were just pressure, 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 pressure. Our defensive front helped, the linebackers helped, and what was allowing us to do that, our defensive backs had blanket coverage going on.
Yeah, I want to go back and talk about the drive charts like you talked about. We started as fast as you can possibly start on defense because for the second game in a row, you lead with an interception right out of the gate. And then it was after the rain delay where it got rough for the Herd because it's 2 plays, 75-yard touchdown, 2 plays, 75-yard touchdown. And then you start the second quarter and it's punt, field goal, and that's it. You get one more touchdown in the third quarter. It was through that middle part of the game where those plays started happening, and it was the you got the guy dead to rights and you don't finish the play. You go for the hit instead of the tackle, and it just optically looked bad. But if you look at the scoring, Middle Tennessee gets those 14 points after the rain delay on the two play 75-yard touchdowns that were both drives under a minute. So freakishly, just touchdown drives. And then through the second and third quarters, when you're playing your worst on defense, most inconsistent, you only get 14 points total, right?
Yeah.
So when you go back and look at the scoring, it doesn't tell the story that your eyes were wanting you to believe while you were watching the game. And ultimately, it doesn't matter. You want to get that cleaned up. You just don't want to see it. You don't want to have it happen. Better teams than Middle Tennessee State, no disrespect, will be able to capitalize on that and hurt you more. It's just that Middle wasn't able to do it. They were killing themselves with penalties in the second half of that game. Every time they got anything going, it was called back. Anytime they got something going, it was called back. But
we're probably 5 plays of wrapping up and finishing the tackle, and Boogie just missing. He jumped just a little too quick, or maybe just too little late, whatever. But he just missed. He had the right idea. That would have been a pick six. He read it. He just misplayed it. So we're about 5 plays, 4 of them being the missed tackles or the not finishing the tackles, and then that play from being probably an A in this by the defense.
It's not bad. It just could have been better. I wouldn't call this a bounce back game for this defensive secondary. I think they might have taken a step back versus what we saw against EKU, which is a little concerning. And, I'm not going to pile on because I know this meant something to him, but I tweeted this during the game that I wanted, and I think everybody in the fan base wanted to see Marvay Myers just ball out against his former team, and he had a rough game. And I know it's not the way he wanted to go into Floyd Stadium and play, and I felt bad for him for doing that. But he's the one let one of the big plays escape from him on a big hit. He had a PI call, a couple PI calls maybe, and I just felt for the kid because I know more than anything he wanted to go in there and ball out against his team. But C's fair grade. Special teams, what you got?
A. Could have been an A+, but I felt like there was just not an opportunity to get an A+. They did nothing wrong. It was just like what they did have was good. There was just no huge punt return, didn't have really kick return options, anything like that. Didn't have any field goals that you could get, no attempts for them or anything. Nathan Totten just absolutely killed it, so it's an A.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, that was a really great effort by Totten. He does so much of the lifting on special teams because nothing else really came into play. I'm going to say though, this was less about a special teams Marshall play than it is a Middle Tennessee State. You talked about the one earlier where we punted down and downed it on the 1 or 2, the 1.5 yard line. And they called a penalty on Middle Tennessee State. That changed the trajectory of the game for them. They were never the same after that penalty. It was so demoralizing that kept that Marshall drive going, which ultimately led to a touchdown. That was it. It like that took the wind out of their sails, never to be recovered for the remainder of the game. And I'm trying to figure out when that occurred, and it looks like it occurred like
I think it's
that.
the end of the third quarter.
It is.
We scored 6 seconds into the fourth quarter, and I think that was going to be like that was going to put them starting the end of the third quarter, like with a minute to go or something like that in the third quarter. We finished the drive, got the touchdown a few plays right after that penalty.
Yeah, it was that kick or penalty is charted at the 11-second mark in the third quarter. So it was the tail end. And then, 15 seconds later, you score the touchdown that ties the game. So that's what it was. They were ahead, and then you are all of a sudden, you don't have the ball, and now you're tied. They just could not recover after that. What do you got for the coaches?
B-. There was still some things there that, do you need the trick play when you ran it?
No.
Things like that. But also, too, it wasn't like there was that many questionable calls for me. It was that at some point, coaching also has to go on discipline when you get penalties. Coaching has to go on missed tackles as well. So even though it was the players executing on the field, I feel like that is a coaching thing that they are going to have to put their thumb on, because you start doing that in Sunbelt Conference play, these games are going to be losses. Zero disrespect to Middle Tennessee State. I feel like there are some really good teams, as down as the Sun Belt may be overall this year. There are some really good teams in the Sun Belt that you will not be able to get by with what you did against Middle Tennessee State and get a win on the board. So I got them at a B- on there, largely for some things that I hate to use the old cliche, but we got to get better on that.
Yeah. There were a few little things that I picked up on during the course of the game, and they may have been communicated to the players, but when you're calling those plays, it doesn't matter. Like, I tuned into the fact that we kept running stretch type run plays, and the footing was so bad after that rain delay. That field was really slippery. And I just didn't feel like that was the thing to do, to where you're putting your backs in the position to have to make a sharp cut after stretching the run play out to try to get upfield. I felt like you needed to try to run more north and south to offset the lack of good footing. But we made it work. It's just I saw too many of those stretch plays, and I thought, man, because they were slipping. The guys were slipping down. And it just I felt like, man, this really sucks. It feels like we should be well over 200 yards rushing if we would have, just taking it straight at these guys. They were doing a really good job of doing that. And then again, it's one of those things. And again, it might have been communicated, but you got to get your guys over there and say, hey, we need to focus on wrapping up and tackling, right? We don't need to, who cares about a highlight hit? I want to see the football on the ground, not squirrel away and be able to pick up another 15, 20 yards. So you're right. Some of these things have to go on the coaching staff, but overall they did a great job. I mean, how are you? You're not going to get mad too often at 6 touchdowns on the board. That's going to win you a lot of football games. What do you got for the fans?
I got a B. I saw a lot of people when I looked that were all doom and gloom when we were down, or all doom and gloom because we gave up the long touchdowns. No one likes that, but you can't say it's going to be a long season, this team's going to be bad, whatever. You can't give up on them just because something negative happens. It's that video game mentality. You said it earlier. We want every play to be perfect. All of us want to do that. We're all stupid, idiot fans. That's what all of us are. We expect perfection. I expect the Reds not to blow this playoff opportunity that we have sitting in our lap right now. It's going to happen, So we're stupid like that because we're fans, right? But I saw a lot of that, but that's not the thing. I looked and I saw some of our fans left during the rain delay when you're down there. And, some of them good friends of mine, some of them be listening to this. I'd never shy about stuff like that. They know that I'll come and tell them right to their face about it, but I didn't like that. I think if you're going to go down there and support the team, support the team. They were down there and they didn't leave. Of course, they went on the field and they won us a football game. So I think if you're going to make the trip and everything, no one wants to sit through 2 hours of rain delays or whatever it was. No one's going to want to be miserable. No one's want to get soaked and things like that. But stick around and watch the game. Plenty did. Plenty did.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I'm giving us a B because we had some that left.
Well, I'll tell you what, sometimes I became a little doom and gloom during the game, but it was more so because I was seeing what I wanted to see. You know what I mean? We talk about that a lot. Your mind sees what you want it to see. And I was just looking at the game and all this weird shit happening, and it was in Murfreesboro. That was my doom and gloom. It's not that they were playing terrible. It was like, gosh, what is it about Murfreesboro that's making all this stuff happen to us? And that's what I kept getting doom and gloom on. Or, the trick play set me off again. And I don't know, man. I just like, there's no need to do it. Like, they're not stopping you. Why stop yourself? That kind of thing. And, I was a little vocal, and, my bad, coach. Rod Smith called a hell of a game in the beginning and the end, and the execution showed it. And, you got back to basics, and you hit 81 in the red zone, and Floyd Lacey goes off. I mean, shout out to those guys for putting Floyd on the field on the offensive situations. Broke out in a big way. I went so far as to call him the bona fide wide receiver #1 after one game, because he was the most electric guy on the field. Mm-hmm. He should be on every play unless he needs a breath, without a doubt. So I was guilty of that a little bit too.
Was he only in at Georgia and this game at wideout, or did?
I don't recall him being in against Missouri State. He might have been. He wasn't targeted, I don't believe, if he was, or he didn't record a reception. And I don't recall him being in against EKU.
EKU, he was not on the field, and I can't remember him at Missouri State. But I think that he really missed those last two games of those losses, and I think that obviously it's apparent he adds a breakaway mentality and threat at all times. Which we need. We talked about the wide receivers not getting separation and things like that. Boy, they opened up this game,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I know it's happening. It's really easy for us to say things like, just as fans, to go, man, I've never seen a guy run this hard, or I can't remember a guy running this hard. Every time he got the ball in his hands, he was running like a daggone running back, like trying to go over somebody or through somebody. It wasn't just like, well, let me make the catch and then get what I can and get out of bounds. He was trying to get to the end zone on every play. I love that. I love that mindset. I loved it, man. It was awesome. Like, keep him in the field. Keep him on the field. He is the best overall weapon that you have. I tweeted that he's the best all-purpose weapon that Marshall has, because he does it on the ground, through the air, and in the return game. So ride that horse as long as you can, because he's willing to do the work. Let him do the work. What do you got overall for this Herd squad?
Overall, it's a B, and I'm putting the experience in there. There was some lack of execution, takes it down a little, but I'm talking about the trip as well. Again, had to go by myself, but also had to go through that monsoon and lightning delay. And it's just, it's deflating. You're down there, you're pumped up and everything. I can't imagine the switches that had to be shut off and then turned back on for the football players on both ends of the field. But us as the fans, you're getting down there, and then just all of a sudden you're just like, well, let's go stand and watch it rain for an hour and a half. So overall it was a B, but we walked out of Murfreesboro. Me and Joe Boo drove down there, and we ended up getting us a victory.
I tell you, overall for me, I'm giving it an A. Even though the defense struggled through the middle of the game, you still came out, dominated the first. Offensively, you dominated in the first quarter, dominated in the latter half of the third and fourth quarters, absolutely took a stranglehold on that game and refused to be outplayed in the final quarter of play. That was awesome. I loved seeing that. But even with all the grades and everything, you still go down to a place you historically freaking struggle, and you won convincingly. That bumps it up an entire letter grade for me. Even this was a B average game, this was an A effort because of what it means to take this team and go into that stadium and play that way. We just haven't done that. and we did it. So breath of fresh air. This is again where that newness of this whole team came into play in a positive way. None of those guys have that hangover, that aura of going into Floyd Stadium and playing like crap. And a lot of our guys have in years past, because it was, you had guys for 3 or 4 years and they got 2 trips into Floyd Stadium and they didn't play well either time they went there. So this was a really, really great effort. Who was your offensive player of the week or offensive MVP for this one?
I had a tie. It's Rio-Wilson with that amazing thing, but also Floyd Lacey. And it's not just because of the yards and everything. It's that huge catch. And that was a tide turner as well. It at the very least, kept the tide going in the direction it needed to go. So it would be hard to say just Del Rio Wilson, as out of his mind he played and the stats that show it. I got to give love to Floyd Lacey as well.
Well, yeah, it's both those guys, and I have them both as well. But you can't have one without the other in this particular scenario. Del Rio Wilson put up great numbers. So many of those numbers were accounted for by Floyd Lacey in both aspects on the offense, both on the ground and through the air. You got to give him his props. The SC top 10 type catch was awesome. I mean, that was awesome. That was a NFL caliber catch. It was awesome. Like, congrats to Floyd for balling out like crazy, putting everybody else in the Herd fan base on notice. Is like, hey man, I'm here to compete. Get me the damn football. Who's your defensive player of the week?
Man, this was tough too. There was so lack of big numbers because there were so many tackles to make, or so few tackles to make. But I got Cam Smith. He came up with a huge sack there. And it seems to me that he ran down the guy after Boogie made. Maybe it wasn't him, but it just seemed like it was. But I know a couple of times he was running well after it looked like, hey, that's a busted play and everything. The guy has just been amazing. He seems to have been in that hybrid role. He flies around like a linebacker. But he came up with a big sack there. It was also a momentum play. I'm going with Cam Smith.
It's a good pick, and I'll tell you what surprised me is that Marshall chose Paul Hudson as their defensive player of the game. And I echoed that because I was watching in real time, and I even made the comment that on the sack that was that went to Jamal Weiss, Paul Hudson created that sack. Right. He just did not get the sack. And he did that all game long. He was creating so much havoc and keeping Vadiato on the move. He was my defensive MVP, even though his stat line does not back that up. He was so.
He's the guy that got held a couple of times. He got held, so he didn't get that sack. I mean, he was living in that backfield. And that one you're talking about, yeah, they credited that to Jamal. I thought it was easily at the minimum a half a sack for both of them.
Should have been.
But I thought that Paul got the hands on him first to actually bring him down, and Jamal just came in on the tail end of it. But he was very much a disruptor and very much what helped lead us. That's what I was talking about, that entire defensive front, man. Just all of a sudden, it was penetration, getting back to the backfield, and caused them to hurry their throws, hold, or take a sack.
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't recall ever choosing a guy in the history of our show that didn't have the stat line to back it up. But I just kept seeing him create play, force the penalties, like you said. On that one that went to Weiss, dude, I tweeted that he was getting the business, because he was, man. They were like, it was the damn near a chokehold, but he was relentless all game long. Shout out to Paul Hudson. Special teamer, who's your guy?
Totten. What else you got?
Yeah, gotta be. The only punt return was Floyd Lacey's 8-yarder. We had no kick returns, and Quinn had no opportunity at a field goal. So it's got to be Totten by default. But even if it wasn't, he still earned MVP. 50.5-yard average? Are you kidding me? All right, so I haven't asked you this all year long, but I guess we're going to do it now because we're at the end of the out of conference, and we're about to start the Sun Belt slate. So what do we know about the Herd after the out of conference slate is now complete?
I think that we are now dangerous because we have a quarterback that is settled. The first 2 games we didn't. Going through the 3rd game we did. Definitely until kickoff we didn't. But now we've got a quarterback settled. If Lacey is a weapon out there at wideout, wait until we get fully healthy in that backfield. Tony Mathis Jr. still has not been Tony Mathis Jr. yet, and Joshawn Barbie didn't travel. With that word was on TV. It did not make the stands because we were all wondering why he wasn't out there, if there was an injury or something like that. But we still thought he was there on the sidelines. No one just saw and said, "Yeah, there's 5." But we were all like, we haven't seen him yet. Do we see him in the 4th? That sort of thing. So I think we are, if we can tighten up some things on defense in the defensive backfield, if we can tighten up some things and find that right switch of aggressive but not too aggressive. So we're not getting those pass interference penalties. We're not missing going for the pick and score and giving up a long play, that sort of thing. Not missing those tackles, because we're going for a big hit instead of the textbook technique of wrapping up. I think we are a couple of things from being a very dangerous Sun Belt team because it looks like this offense can explode. Whereas early in the season, we were thinking, will it ever? But now it looks like it can. Put up 31 in the first half. Yes, that was against EKU. But when Del Rio-Wilson has been in his 6 quarters that he has started and played, then we have scored in those 6 quarters now 72 points. We're getting 12 a quarter while he's in there. The offense is just moving under Del Rio-Wilson. I don't know. It just feels like we have that explosiveness that we might not have thought we had after the first couple of games.
Well, what I know now about the Herd is that you figured out your quarterback position. You have a very deep running back room. We thought we had that. We actually do have that. We've seen Mike Allen run really well for the past couple of games. We've seen Justin Williams-Thomas do it for the past couple of games, not only on the ground, but also in the pass game. Joshawn Barbie, we've seen do it early. Once he gets healthy and you get a 3-headed monster, and then you throw in a guy like Antoine Roberts, who's ran hard every time he's gotten into the game in limited action and picked up 30 yards on 2-3 carries. I mean, that's a lot of production. If you get Floyd Lacey to offset what the excitability that we've seen out of Adrian Norton in limited action, and now you're starting to target Toby Payne more in the pass game and in the red zone, this offense can be really, really good. Throw away the trick playbook part of the playbook. Just throw it away. You don't need it. It seems to do more harm than good. You're either taking yourself out of a flow or you're creating a turnover or both. So I don't think you need it. Until you need it, you don't need it, right? Defensively, I might as well have been talking through your mouth. I felt the same way. The defensive backfield just needs to tighten some things up. A little bit better instinctual play. Know when to go for that pick six. You can't really do it if you're in man-to-man coverage and you've got no safety help. You've kind of got to make sure you're going to get it. Otherwise, you're going to have to play the receiver and make sure you tackle the receiver. Few plays here, few plays there. Cannon Lewis is healthy. I feel a lot better about that second level. Jabril Al-Amin has been playing out of his mind and has continued to do that. I didn't see much from Kerryon Martin in this game. Late, I saw 22 in there a little bit making some plays. So if he's healthy, I like my second level too. Defensive line, if they can get more consistent push, you really got to feel good about those guys too. It's still a work in progress, but man, week over week over week over week, I feel better about what I'm seeing, with the exception of what I felt to be a step back from the defensive backfield this game. We look forward to the next game. Sunbelt play starts next weekend, 9/27, 8 p.m. kickoff on ESPN Plus against Louisiana down in Lafayette. For those of you making the trip, that should be a fun one. You ought to be surrounded by some really good food. Take full advantage of that. For everybody else, watch it on ESPN Plus. Russ, you got any final words?
Yeah, just wanted to say that tailgate scene down there was killer for what they did not do inside the stadium. It was great what they had going on, and particularly, I tagged him on there, but Sean Brown from MTSU, he's an Omega Sci-Fi guy, and he said 20 years ago. after he graduated, there was not anybody out there. And over that 20 years, he's gotten, all the fraternities and the sororities, from the black fraternities, black sororities, to get together, and they have this huge tailgate out there. I told him I'd like to try to see if we can't invite those guys from Huntington, from Marshall, over to our tailgate to try to grow that until they can splinter off to do their own big thing like what he's doing down there. Just a great scene. All these guys and gals getting together as alums and everything. And that's what it's about for me on these road trips. The game is one thing, going down and seeing the tailgating culture and the fan culture and everything's the other part of it too. And of course, the local food and vibes of the town. So it was cool to go down there. I just wanted to give Sean, I don't know if he's listening to this, he said he's going to start following us and everything. Wanted to give him a shout out because it was pretty cool what he's put together down there.
So he did follow us, and he tweeted a couple times that, you took a picture and everything. And he was like, I think he tweeted like that we were showing him some love or whatever. Yeah. And I replied like, one thing you got to know about us, we love a good tailgate. So to that end, I expect him to be listening. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, Middle's on the schedule next year. You might as well mark it on your schedule, get your butt to Huntington. You can come and tailgate with us and bring your whole crew. We don't just show up to other tailgates. We host a pretty good one too. And we want you in Huntington. You're welcome to join in all the festivities with the ThunderCast at the ThunderCast tailgate, you and your entire crew. But I've got a couple of other things I need to talk about. Remember, guys, that we have the raffle for the Dutch Miller deck passes and the parking pass for the Texas State game that we will be drawing on the ThunderCast Live for the Old Dominion game. It's $25 donation, a minimum $25 donation to the Herd Cheer Championship Fund. All you got to do is make your donation directly to the championship fund and screenshot or email us your receipt so that we know you actually did it. And that's it. You're in the drawing. If you want more than one entry into the drawing, you need to make separate $25 donations so that we have separate receipts from you. That's all you got to do. That is it. I will say some people have taken advantage. There are some entries flowing in, but your odds are still pretty solid considering the overall value of this package for a mere $25. You got to get in on that. It is a great opportunity to see homecoming in style. Last thing I got to say, Russ, is it's not Marshall football related. It's not Marshall athletics related, but I'm going to give a shout out to a couple guys that I like a whole lot. And my cousin and his son have started a podcast. So if you are into Harley Davidsons and that world of motorcycles and biking, you like to ride and all that kind of stuff, why don't you guys check out the Bikers and Backroads podcast? It's on Twitter, B_pod, B, the word and, B_pod. You can find Bikers and Backroads on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all that kind of stuff. I want to give a shout out to Jay and Big Z because they're doing a really good job. They've got about 4 or 5 episodes in. Their listener base is growing, but I know there are a lot of herd fans that are also Harley enthusiasts and ride bikes. So I wanted to give them a quick plug because they've been really good to us over the years. So I wanted to, pay it back to them a little bit and help them grow their listener base. Once again, B_pod on Twitter. They're also on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, subscribe to their YouTube channel or on Spotify. Give them a listen and interact with the guys. They love it when people leave comments. They read everyone, they answer everyone, and they use those suggestions in the show. So appreciate if you would help grow their listener base. But Russ, that's all I got.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw in something else there. You said they love it when people interact. Well, I love it when a plan comes together because that is 2 weeks in a row I've made an A-team reference. But whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Vet, or whether you see us moseying on down, which me and Jamie are doing, to Lafayette, Louisiana for the next game, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. We're 2-2, baby. Bring on the Sun Belt Conference slate. It's time to make a run. We'll see you next week. Later.